الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وقال الله تعالى في الكتاب الكريم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وقال الله تعالى إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So the 17th of Ramadan, it represents a specific thing, an event that happened in Islamic history. Who can tell me what the event is? The Battle of Badr. Now what was the Battle of Badr? What led up to the Battle of Badr? Why did it happen? What did it represent? What is the mu'jizat that it entails and it demonstrates, and the implications that it has till this day? Now the Battle of Badr, it was an illustration of how geopolitics and Islam came together. That Islam is not only a religion of spirituality, rather it's also a religion where you form a geopolitical world power, namely the Caliphate. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he formed the Medina constitution, the Charter of Medina, he came about to fulfill a political institution. That political institution lasted for 1400 years, until 100 years ago when the Ottoman Dawla fell at the hands of the British and the Western world. And after that, Palestine got captured, and the rest is history. But the problem is that we don't remember the history. It's history, but they don't remember. I saw a news article yesterday, and it said that there was some Jews, they were holding up a poster and said that, remember all Muslims, remember Khaybar, because you're not going to get it again. Because Khaybar was a great loss for the Jews. When the Jews, they got in the Battle of the Trench, they got very, very badly defeated. And the Jews, they say, remember Khaybar because you're not going to get it again. Because the majority of Muslims, they don't know if I asked what is the Battle of Khaybar, how many of you can tell me in detail what happened, who was the key proponents of it, who were the opponents, what happened, what was the details of it. It's not history, it's not something that we know to our daily lives. But the Zionists, they know this, they know that Salahuddin Ayyubi, how he came about, they know all the teachings of how to destroy a civilization, namely this world power, this geopolitics that we're talking about. Because they study our tactics in order to fight us. They use the tactics of the Muslims to destroy the Muslims. And it's something that we need to educate ourselves about. Now the Battle of Badr, it began when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran verse, where he said that permission has now been granted for you to fight those who have drawn you out of your houses and persecuted you. Now permission here is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was a command for him, right? It was an etiquette of the Quran addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it said permission has been granted. Now that permission, it entailed fard, it entailed an obligation, that it's now frowned upon the Muslims to go and fight against these people who are spreading their corruption and tyranny. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew the implications of this, and he knew that he would have to fight them in some way or another, in any way. But the only real way that looked realistic was through raids, meaning the caravans, because the key proponent of the heart of the Quraysh, their trade and their society, was the trade that they got from Yemen and the southern border and around the Arabian Peninsula, from Najd, from Yemen. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the early Muslims, they knew that they had to do something about the trade routes in order to disrupt the caravans, and through that they would have some kind of the Quraysh would have to appease them, and they would have to have some sort of negotiation. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he he appointed one of the early companions to be in charge of Mecca, Medina during his absence, who was Sa'id ibn Ubadah radiallahu anhu. And then after that, after the Hijrah, and September 623, meaning in after BC, after death of Isa alayhi salam, which is our calendar is based upon the Gregorian calendar.
Sorry, it's not death.
Sorry, the rising of Isa alayhi salam. What the Christians believe and what they have formed as the 2023, as in like the Gregorian calendar is based upon that, whereas we follow the Hijri calendar. In the Hijri calendar, we follow the year 4044, whereas in the Gregorian calendar is 2023. So in that year, it would be 623 when this happened, September, where Umayyah, the chief of the Jum'ah, they were a key tribe within the Quraysh. He was armed with 100 men, and he had this trade which he wanted to bring back to the Quraysh and to Mecca. So Umayyah, he had always been one of the finest enemies of Islam. And so there was two reasons of attacking this specific trade. Number one, because of the price itself. They say that there was as many as 1,500 camels, that it was a large trade that they could have got, and that would have benefited the early Muslims in Medina who were having some sort of economic loss. So not only they could kill two birds with one stone. Number one, they could get revenge on this man who had persecuted the early Muslims, and number two, they could revive the economy, and they could belittle the economy of those who are in the Quraysh, the pagans in Mecca. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went out with 200 men, half of whom were the Ansar, the helpers from Medina. However, there was some sort of misinformation, and they missed this trade, and he never came. So they never really caught Umayyah. So they waited, and they knew that eventually they would have to find some sort of trade. So they kept their scouts open, and eventually they found Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent his cousin Abdullah ibn Jahsh radiallahu anhu to go near Mecca, between Ta'if and Mecca. And the narration goes that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sends Abdullah radiallahu anhu with 8 of the helpers, and they go and they try and hear about the trades that come, and they find a caravan. Now the problem was, it was the month of Rajab. Now Rajab, it's one of the sacred months where war has been prohibited for the Muslims. However, the fact was that this was a practice that was done in the age of Jahiliyyah. So now the Muslims at this stage, they had saw these people, and they had recognized some of them as being enemies of Islam who had fought against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during the early days. So they had a predicament now. Number one, they could either leave it and just go back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and report back to him, or they could fight the people who ostensibly they were against Islam, like the Quran commanded, that now war has been permitted for you. So now Abdullah ibn Jahsh radiallahu anhu, he's faced with this dilemma, and he chooses to fight against the enemies. So he kills one of them with an arrow, and then they go back and then they collect the war booty, and they go back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they give 1/5 to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says and he responds, I did not bid you to fight in the sacred month. And now Abdullah ibn Jahsh radiallahu anhu and the rest of the companions, they thought a judgment day had happened, because they thought they had committed a sin, and they felt that the burden of this loss, that we have committed something against Islam, we have gone against the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because now the Quraysh, they believed and they spread the lies that this was sacrilege, meaning it's apostasy against their Jahiliyyah. So they had spread this amongst the Awam and the people of Mecca. So now Abdullah ibn Jahsh radiallahu anhu, he's blaming himself, the companions are blaming themselves. But this is the beauty of the Sahaba, that this was their ijtihad, their personal legal reasoning, that they were faced with two options. They followed what the Quran said directly, and they didn't have anything against Rasulullah. They didn't have any command by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam strictly forbidding that at that moment. And then when they came back, they realized that they had made some sort of mistake as a ijtihadi matter. So they go, and what happens? The Quran, it reveals the verse that okay, you cannot fight in the sacred months. However, those who have fought against Allah and His Messenger, and they abuse the early believers, they are committing a greater crime. So there was no problem done here, because they are worse than them. You cannot compare the Sahaba and who gave their lives and these these pagans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sends this verse and He relieves the burden of Abdullah ibn Jahsh radiallahu anhu and the rest of the companions. But it goes and demonstrates how sometimes in certain situations, the Sahaba, they were in a state of, they felt in a state of dismay, that they didn't know what to do, and they felt that they had dented the name of Islam. But what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down a Quran verse to relieve them of that burden. Because the reality is that they were the greatest of people after the prophets. And they loved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we have discussed before, more than themselves. So that feeling that they had let down the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that was a heavy burden for them. It hit them heavy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He relieves that burden by sending down His Quran. So now they had got this ransom, and they let some of the people go who they got from that raid. However, some of them converted to Islam from that raid. So now the month of Sha'ban came, meaning the month after. Sha'ban is not a holy month. So now, meaning from the 4 months which are, it's impermissible to fight. So Sha'ban comes, and the revelation of a great ritual importance. What happens in this month, which is specific, is that the Kaaba direction changes from Jerusalem to Mecca. So this is relevant because, number one, the Jews at that time, there was some sort of pluralism, and they thought that we could get into the ranks of the believers as munafiqun, and blended with them. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during the salah, he turned direction. And what happens? All the other believers, they turned direction, but the Jews didn't. They were confused because they never really believed. They were, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them as fasiq and zalimin, meaning that they were defiantly disobedient against Allah and His Rasul. And that even though Philistine, it would change from the Qibla, it didn't mean that it went down, it diminished in any rank to the believers. That even till that the concept that it's the third holiest site, it's wrong. Why? Because it should be that's one of the 3 most holiest sites. The wording is very important. Number 2, the flag of Palestine. Can someone tell me who created the flag of Palestine? Who created the flag of Palestine that people are so proud of today? I'll tell you who. The British created the flag of Palestine when they gave it to the Arab Khawarij to fight against the Ottomans. Now it's the same flag that people are so proud of, which was used to destroy the Ottoman Caliphate. That's how brainwashed people have become. But obviously there's a balance of arguments that for a lot of people this represents unity and solidarity for the Palestinians, which is a good thing. However, we need to look at the origins and the history of the early Muslims, and even 100 years ago. And the Battle of Badr, that's why it represents so much. That during the tribes of the Israelites and the early prophets, you have the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam. What happened? Dawood alayhi salam, he's commanded to fight against Goliath, who was from the... So it's the same instance, because in this case you had 313 companions of Badr, radiallahu an, and they fought against 1,000 pagans of Quraysh. So they were less in numbers, but they never let that get to them. Rather, they were in full solidarity with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For both the Ansar and the early, the ones who migrated, the Muhajirun, both of the parties, they're with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam completely. Whereas it's similar to the time of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, where he fought strongly against the Goliath. And what does the Quran say? He makes this dua. He says, رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ قَدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Ya Allah, رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا. Ya Allah, grant me patience and allow me to endure this test. رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. And grant us victory over the kuffar and the non-believers. And it's similar, it's interesting, because every story that you see of a prophet in Islamic history, you will see that message and that specific trial and tribulation in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also. All of the trials that the early prophets had, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had them all. We look at the story of Dawood alayhi salam. He fought against this big tyrant and oppressor. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam fought against the Quraysh, who were the biggest tyrants and oppressors. Musa alayhi salam, he fought against Fir'aun and the tyrants who claimed that they ruled the lands. But one time a man came to Umar radiallahu anhu and said, Ya Umar, we believe you are better than Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And he asked the question, he said, what do you think is better? A believer at the time of Fir'aun or Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu? And Umar radiallahu anhu responds, and he said that one single day of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is better than an entire life of a believer during the time of Fir'aun. Why? Because they were in a state of taqiyya, they were hiding their beliefs out of permissibility because of the trials that they would have to endure. Whereas Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he clearly illustrated his love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was by his side throughout the entire journey, from the very, the immigration from Mecca to Medina, to the Battle of Badr, to the Battle of Uhud. Every narration and every battle and every instance, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was there. Number 3, you have the story of Prophet the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, where his uncle is going against him, his uncle Azar, who's known in the Quran. And similarly, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have the Quraysh. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncles are trying to belittle him, and look at the results. Similarly, you have the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, where his brothers are jealous of him and they envy him. Now you have the uncles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who are envying him, and his own brethren are hating him. All of these stories, the beauty and the ni'mah of this, that all of the stories and all of the trials and tribulations that the early prophets faced, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he faced and he endured, and he superseded and flourished in every single environment that all those prophets faced. And Badr is a very good instance of this, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he now approaches the battle, 330 men, companions, young, old. Before this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he inquires with the Muhajirun and the Ansar. So obviously we know that the flag bearer for the Muhajirun was Ali radiallahu anhu, and the flag bearer for the Ansar was Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu. Now Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, so I talked about this a few days ago, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, who will fight with me? And who's going to go towards me? And then one of the Ansar, he responded and said, Ya Rasulullah, we will not leave you like the people of Musa alayhi salam left their prophet and said, you go and you and your Lord go and fight in Palestine. That's what the people of Musa alayhi salam said. You and your Lord can go and fight in Palestine, because they are too strong for us. That kind of double standards. And now we have those same double standards, that someone else can go and do a fight in Palestine. That's not our problem. We will stick to our lives, we will live mediocre lives, and we will not get involved in politics. That's what they say, we will not get involved in politics. This is a religion of spirituality, that we will live a pluralistic lifestyle. Badr shows otherwise, because Badr shows that Islam came to enforce and issue a geopolitical world power that began when Adam alayhi salam was sent onto the earth. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asks again, and he says, does anyone have any advice on this matter? He asked this 3 times. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar radiallahu anhu and the people of the Muhajirun, they answer. And then the 3rd time, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, he says, Ya Rasulullah, do you mean us? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, yes. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, we have faith in thee and we believe what you have told us, and we testify that what you have brought us is the truth, and we have given our binding oath to you to hear and obey. Sami'na wa ata'na. What does the Quran say? وَقَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. That the 2 commands to hear and obey. Simple as that. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commands something, you hear and you obey, and you do not have a doubt in the back of your minds. And then they say, by him, wallahi, who has said the truth, if you would bid us to cross from the sea and plunge ourselves into the sea, we would do it, and we would not hesitate. Not one man of us will stay behind. Neither are we averse from meeting our enemy tomorrow. We are well tried in war. Now they were selling themselves. They said, Ya Rasulullah, we are worthy of this standard. They said, we are well tried in war, trusty in combat, and it may be that God will show our power and bring coolness to your eyes. And they say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard these words, Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he narrates that years later, he narrates how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his face lit up with these words. Because there was 2 issues that might have been the problem. Number 1, how the Ansar helped Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they were going to be loyal to him. And the first companion answered that when he said, we are going to be loyal to you, unlike the people of Musa alayhi salam. And number 2, because they were about to leave Medina. The treaty was that the Ansar would help Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as long as he is in the vicinity of Medina. But this battle, the Badr, was going to occur outside the vicinity of Medina. So now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asking them and inquiring whether they would help him even outside of this area. And they say, of course, because we gave that allegiance to you, and we didn't mean it in like a geographical location. Rather, we meant it in a bond that is going to be with us till our deaths, that we will hear and we will obey. Now the battle happens, and what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the angels, and the angels come and they fight alongside the believers. And then we go back. See, spirituality and politics come in hand. Do you see this now? Spirituality comes in hand, because the angels came down by divine revelation, they came down to the earth to support the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his early believers. And politics came to power because these two parties, the Ansar and the Muhajirun, they would not give up. They would not give up, and they would never leave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would never abandon him. And as a result of that, what happens? The battle is a success. And the Battle of Badr is known to this day as the Battle of Success, the first battle of Islam. And we ponder over it because these 313 believers that now, and they were also, it was in the month of Ramadan as well, so now we complain, you go to work and you have all these trials and tribulations and it's a long day, you come home, you pray Taraweeh and you're just tired and you're knackered and you think, this is a long month, we're nearly finished now, we got about a week and a half left and you're thinking, it needs to finish now. And so, that's what's in the back of our minds. But these people, they fought in a war, a literal war, and the 313, the odds were against them. But they fought against the Quraysh and the pagans because they truly believed and they truly aspired to follow the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as a result of that, help came from them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That He is al-Nasir, He is the one who will help. He is the helper. He is the wali. He is the protector. He is the one who will help you in any situation that you face and He will allow you to overcome it. Why? Because if you truly believe in the message and you truly are loyal to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there will never be an instance where you are let down. You'll never have an instance where you feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has neglected your belief in Him. Rather, that's why Imam Ali alayhi salam said, he said that today is the work and tomorrow is the result. That today you do the work and tomorrow you will get the result. That it's all about doing those actions for today, because temporary desires and your temptations and the temporary joy, it's temporary. All the joy of this world is temporary, whereas reward is eternal. And the reward of this world is going to be faced in the next. And that is the day of Hisab. اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. Read your book with your own hands. No one else can help you on this day. اقرأ كتابك, you read your own book. Now how do you want our book to be? Do you want our book to be filled with salawat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Or do we want our book to be filled with hypocrisy and hatred towards our own brothers because of petty disputes? We need to realize our priorities. And we need to realize the geopolitical relevance of Islam till this day. That khilafat is a fard. You need this group, Ahlul Hal wal Aqd. But not in this country, you need it in the Middle East. But also, it's also important that how you open up your mind. And you can only open your mind if you read. People don't read. It doesn't have to be an Islamic book. You need to read some sort of books. You need to read history books. You need to, because we've been brainwashed and we've been programmed in such a way. People don't like this when they've been told that they've been programmed. They feel insecure. But it's true, because propaganda and media and society as a whole, it programs you in such a way that you do not even realize it. How many of us knew that the Palestinian flag was created by the British? How many of us knew the relevance of Khaybar, the relevance of Badr? That these kuffar, as I said last time, al-kufr al-millatul wahid, that's what the scholars say, that the kuffar are in one party and they all aspire to take Palestine. There's some scholars, not even, they were Western scholars, they argued that World War I was the final crusade, meaning that the result of World War I was to take over Palestine. You read the papers and it will shock you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us hidayah, and may He allow us to send abundant salawat on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and allow us to follow and aspire to be like his prophet, his companions in this world and in the next. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وأتوب إليه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
You know, like,